Welcome, 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 everyone, to another Thursday's special teaching. As I flub the intro, as I'm trying them to do intros, we are doing the coronation of the king. I'm joined by Laura, Maddie, and Dale. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, welcome everybody. This is
Welcome,
going to be
everyone.
an interesting show.
Yes.
And if everybody
So-
can put on their hats of crowns of sovereignty as well, we're in for some good treats.
Yeah, fly the
Real
bunting.
quick, note to those that are doomers and gloomers. I do not agree with everything that's said in conspiracy world about the kings and the queens. We are looking at their regalia. If you think they're all baby raping lizard wizards, you can clock out right now. This is about contract holders, spiritual contracts, understanding how the system works. And if you're one of those people that's going to go and put all your personal comments in about how we don't know our astral hologram, you don't have to watch. Okay? But if you're wanting to learn about galactic history, the specific items, how they're used in a magical ceremony, this is the show from you because no one else will be doing it. With that being said, Laura, Maddie, Dale, we are going to go through the different coronation devices, objects, rituals, and concepts and try to break them down one by one. We are absolutely open to having people type in questions. So if you're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, they are all linked into our unique chat room where we can see everything here at once. So as you're hearing us talk about it or you want us to look at a specific device or part of the ritual, we can do that. So if you are a coronation aficionado and want to know about the secret world of magic behind it, sit back, relax, and enjoy what's coming to you. So, where shall we start?
So before we begin, Andrew, I think it might be good. What about preparation for the coronation then? So before we talk about the coronation itself, what's the preparation beforehand? As in, is the ceremonial time done in ready for that day and so on?
So, when the queen died, that's when the rituals began. Well, before her death. So, the way kings and queens work, they want to be reborn in a lineage. And the rituals that are done at death guarantee them to be reborn within 2 or 3 generations. So the queen, she'll be reborn roughly in 70 years. Okay? So, Queen Elizabeth. Now, it also works that they're spiritual contract holders, and when they do pass on, they pass on the contracts to the next person who's the person being coronated. Long before the official coronation, and that's where you're accepting the sovereign powers and going through the acceptance of the state powers versus the spiritual powers. There are rituals that are done to indoctrinate their frequency into these energies. So before Charles was up there, he had several religious and spiritual rituals done to prepare him for receiving the items. Okay, the items have to choose you too. Inside those items are the ancestors of the past who have held the power both in positive and both in negative, and in the neutral state also. Those objects accept you as much as you accept them. There are aspects to the sovereign power that are not about baby raping lizard wizards. It's literally about the running of the state and what it takes to run the state, no matter how corrupt its people are. Okay? There are certain things that must be maintained, and if they're not maintained, there's a breakdown of the reality of the sovereign. Now, the sovereign is the king, but is there anybody else in the society that has the sovereign's power? No. We have laws that limit it. Is the king above the laws? Technically, yes. Or the queen. But there's the spiritual laws. That's where these regalia reside. So this show is really about the magic. So the rituals that were done before were to prepare him to receive the items, and then once he's received the items, they go back to their museum places, which are another contract holder for the objects of the place. And they are rarely ever used in public except for coronation. Like the different rods and the different scepters that you'll see, there are different laws that are passed, and some ceremonial objects are brought out to help pass a law to show the sovereign's power as part of the acceptance. in the ancient days, 1800, like back in the 1800s, 1860s, even in the 1870s, the crown jewels were regularly displayed as magical rituals of glamour. And that's what you must understand about this type of magic. It is glamour magic. Okay?
So are all the objects that we're going to talk about, are they all bound by contract to this lineage, to the DNA
Yes.
lineage?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Where do we want to start, guys?
So for all these ceremonies, Andrew, is there like kind of a ceremonial person within the royal family with the oral traditions, what they have, just passing it on to the next generation, and there's like a book or just something they have to train the next lot? Is there something going on like that?
So there is an entire magic society done by the church that oversees the ritual incantations and the regular protection ceremonies done on the crown jewels. The crown jewels are regularly subject to spiritual invasion by external forces. So you have an entire trained force that just protects the sovereign's jewels when they're not in use. Because believe it or not, when they're just sitting behind the case, they are in heavy use in the other realms. Okay? There are ways to command beings in the other realms to use the sword of equity, to use the different orbs, the different scepters, to command power in those religious organizations that still give prayer power to the king or sovereign, as well as to the Lord of heaven, or the religious Bibles, etc., etc. So you must understand the structure of the rituals. Even if you don't believe in the Catholic or Christian faith, which doesn't matter, there's still a mechanics of how prayer works. And the king is the medium to prayer. Okay? He doesn't take all the prayer, he just tithes a little bit of it before it goes to God.
So for these people doing like the ceremonial magic, Andrew, are they aware of it in the physical? Because I know like Charles, they won't be aware of what they're doing in kind of like the human form. Are they aware of what they're doing in the ceremonies, the people who are doing that, or is it a multi-dimensional kind of chess game going on?
It's multi-dimensional first. And to say, is King Charles aware of the extent of the multi-dimensional? No. But he knows it's a part of it. Most people holding the crown jewels have little awareness to the multidimensional factors. They leave that to the priest class to do. Okay? And it's why the priests and the kings work so closely together as part of the sovereign powers. It's why the priest class oversees it, and that's why the king class keeps the taxes flowing and the government running and the structure in place. So there's a continuous cycle of prayer process that's there.
So going to... Sorry, go ahead, Laura. Going to the start of the royal family, was it Queen Victoria who was the first official royal family member? Is that right?
Well, that's debatable.
What from your...
No matter what, debatable. It's all about who made it in history. It's not about the reality of their lineage or not. It's who made it in history.
And the objects they've used actually go back, they're medieval, aren't they? Although yes. They've changed and sometimes been stolen and smashed over the years, like the crown, and put back together. I mean, I think there's been 6 different imperial crowns, hasn't there, over the time? So I guess each time they adjust something like a crown, I know we'll go into that in a minute, they have to rebind the magic within that, don't they?
It depends if they have to break down all the jewels that are in it. Let's say the next king's head's much bigger than the previous one. Okay? Or like Queen Elizabeth couldn't wear any of the crowns because it was too heavy to would have broke her neck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's there walking down.
She would have never been able to hold her head up. Yeah. Okay? So it all depends if they have to unbind the major jewels. But most of the crowns are made so you can do some adjustments on them. When they do have, let's say, one of the kings dropped it, drunkenly dropped it, and you really fucked it up, then it has to be rebound and redone.
So shall we start with the crowns?
So, yes. So let's have that website go to full image, Joel. There we go.
So it said. So as I was researching earlier, it says the crown originates from St. Edward, and the crown and the seat are from St. Edward as well. What I was reading.
Note the years. Note the years.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead and read what we have there, and then I'll give you the background on it.
Okay, so the heart of the crown jewels and housed in the Tower of London, where they are kept on public display, the coronation regalia are sacred and secular objects which symbolise the service and responsibilities of the monarch. The regalia have played a central role in coronation services. Laura, could you mute your mic a minute? There we go. Coronation services for hundreds of years, in keeping with tradition, will be used at Westminster Abbey on 6th of May as part of the Royal Collection. The regalia are held in trust by the monarch on behalf of the nation. 2 maces made of silver gilt over oak date between 1660 and 1695 and are the ceremonial emblems of authority which are carried before the sovereign at events such as the state opening of Parliament. Also carried before the sovereign on formal occasions is the sword of state, symbolising royal authority. A steel blade with a silver gilt hilt enclosed in a wooden scabbard which is covered in velvet. And there's the dates there, 1660 and 1678. Do you want me to keep going or?
No, let's leave it right there. So you've got the crown, the scepters, the swords, etc. Those are the state tools. Okay? So the sword from 1660, that's how long? That's 330 years? Something to that effect? How ancient is that magic? How many times has it been bound, rebound, added to, expansion of the empire to the dissension of the empire? It survived multiple wars over and over again. It has within it the ancestral wisdom of the previous heads of state. And there were different kings and different forms of heads of state. Oftentimes the king didn't run the noble's house or the common's house. They let it run itself. Because giving the authority to the semi-elected officials or nobles was a way to keep people appeased. Very important. And then the king would step in with the different ceremonial regalia to help pass certain types of laws. Whether they were laws for the commoners, laws for the nobles, etc., etc. Okay? So what questions do we have about the specific objects first? And then you can just scroll down to the next one.
So the crowns. So what's the point of the? There's 2 crowns. There's the Imperial State Crown, and there's the St. Edward's Crown, which is the oldest one, isn't it? So
let's do the Imperial Crown first. The Imperial Crown first. Okay, what is the Imperial Crown? It represents the state of the empire and the sovereign as it sits today. And then the next crown is the ancient aspect of how much wisdom was a part of it long before anything. Okay?
So that would really be the ancestral crown.
The current crown and the ancestral crown, and the binding of the two.
Okay, so like ancient wisdom with modern magic?
Yes, but think of it more as when you wear the imperial crown, you're commanding the forces of today, and when you're wearing the other crown, you're commanding the forces of yesterday.
Okay, and also crowns before that didn't have the arches on them, did they? They were just like a corona, just a ring on the head.
Not always. There were varieties of crowns. Some of them looked like tiaras, some were crowns. It's really about the jewels in them that amplify the crown chakra and the charisma of the wearer.
Right. Is that why they changed the different number of diamonds? I mean, there's always a specially calculated number of different jewels every time they changed the imperial crown, every time they remolded it. So you're saying that was to go with that particular persona?
Or their capacity to use the magic of the crown. So once the crown was bonded to a sovereign, it was always connected to their crown. It was always connected to them. That's the spiritual contract holder. So they could do rituals around the crown. I'm sure you've had your crystals out and you feel them give energy back to you.
Yeah.
Imagine something with that amount of crystals, diamonds, gold, everything giving energy back using these sacred geometry shapes.
So was it the king or the sovereign who decided, or was it the crown itself? Sorry, like the court or the crown, as in the bunch of people behind the sovereign.
So it would be the people behind the sovereign. But there are times the sovereign would be fully involved into those magical rituals relating to the type of laws being passed, wars being set, or magical rituals to do negative work to other sovereigns of other places.
Can I ask, is the crowning done in the time that everyone sees it? Because I remember when the rod was snapped on the Queen's funeral. Is it done there and then, or is it done before, like it was with the?
It's done before. Like
Yeah,
I said, they
and-
have to prepare their person to be able to accept the tools, and the tools have to accept them too.
So all the crystals that are used, like at one time there was a spinel, or what they used to call the Black Prince's ruby. So they're all very specifically chosen for that particular sovereign, for what is required for that particular era of rule.
Yes, there are also other crown jewels in the estate of the sovereign that are used for other ritual purposes, but you'd never see them. So if you go to the full collection of the crown's jewels and who currently owns them, you'll see as many as 10 extra sets, okay, who were not just for the sovereign, they were for the other high level Templar magicians of the different orders that supported the king.
Right, so he was just the pinnacle, really, and the
Contract
figurehead of what
the
they
figure, yeah.
yeah, of what they were actually doing behind the scenes.
Exactly.
Okay.
So Charles will just be the contract holder until he dies, and does he just pass that on down his lineage?
Passes it down onto the lineage or the next person that's going to be accepted by them. Remember, these jewels are not limited to this frame of time. That's the main magic that's done to them. Okay? Some of these crowns allow future sight also. Okay? But is the king going to be doing future sight? No. There's going to be a religious practitioner who will be trained to do that inside the different orders, special secret societies and orders who train people from birth to do that stuff.
Like a modern John Dee.
Yes.
Where do they get these stones from, Andrew? Is there a magical process there, or?
All over the world. It's the best and biggest jewels of that generation.
Yeah, like the Colonization diamond that was something like 1,300 carats.
There's another website that tells you exactly how many carats are in each thing. I believe this crown has like 16,000 carats of diamonds in it. And you got to imagine, it's 285 separate diamonds. Imagine having 285 highly refined, perfectly cut diamonds right on your head, and then 6 pounds of gold, 1.5 pounds of platinum, okay, on your head.
Andrew, what would happen to you if you put that on your head?
Oh God! God, I don't know.
King Andrew.
Fifth paradox.
Did you see him get crowned? He looked like he was struggling as he was walking.
Make a crown, and I do want to do that. Like the magic tools that I've made in the past out of beeswax were my way of doing that. But I would love to have a crown that has that kind of shit. And I've talked to many women, go get a tiara and start attaching diamonds and crystals to it. And having that much shit on your head's going to do something.
Yeah,
So
one time
Patty, Patty's asking, what is the meaning and symbolism of wearing the crowns? Power of today and the power of yesterday into the sovereign of the now. That's the symbolism behind it. All of the ancestors of the previous crowns that has been gifted to you and the crown of today working together, which allows you to craft the future of the empire.
And I suppose that it's on your shat rather than must be the most powerful place. I mean, because
Yes.
they also wear the arm nails, the bracelets as well, don't they? But yeah,
Yes.
arm nails, yeah.
So I've seen crown-like structures in the unseen. Would this have an unseen aspect to it as well? These crowns, would these, like, I know a lot of us, some of us, we have our sacred objects that will come with us into the dream and into the unseen worlds.
Crowns themselves are Atlantean technology. Okay, wearing an object of crystal and gold on your head was a way to interact with technology. It has just turned and been bastardized after thousands of years of none of the original Atlantean technology that is converted to poor man's magic of the modern time. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, still on the subject of crowns and the crown jewels travelling the world, also have the hypnosis bound into them, don't they?
Correct. They have the
Magicked into them.
cultural hypnosis of that. As soon as you see them, you are triggered by your many ancient pasts where you served under them.
So what happens, Andrew, when you've got you've got a group of people who are really enjoying it, allowing it, the tacit consent is there. What happens with the other people who are hating it and kind of projecting that they don't want a
They're
crown?
the ones who are not aligning to the sovereign's power and to the negative things the sovereign has done, such as damaging families, the killing of the different clans, the betrayals that were done, the money deals gone wrong, all the negative things that the crowns have done to date, which they have then rejected. And therefore, when they see the crowns and they see the sovereigns, they have the complete opposite. The glamour has pushed them to the other side, where the magic no longer works on them.
Okay, so what about the orb that we see there with the crown? Because
So go ahead and read about that orb so people have an understanding of what it is.
I can't see it. Can one of you guys read it, please? Okay, yes, I can.
So yeah, I've lost a link. Hang on.
Hold on. A representation of the sovereign's power is symbolized in the Christian world. The sovereign's orb was made from gold in the 17th century and is divided into 3 sections with bands and jewels for each of the 3 continents known in the medieval period. This also represents the 3 states of control, the three obelisks of power: Rome, Whitehall, and Washington D.C. This is the taking of the power of Egypt and making it to the power of the now here, where they take over the power of the ancients and bring it into their presence now. It's a way of claiming the ancient past as their present now.
Which is why it also goes on the procession with them afterwards.
And it's also exists. It for periods of time. The sovereign's orb will stay in the House of Parliament.
So it's almost like a control.
Let's replace control with charismatic influence.
Okay. And well, is that almost like another hypnosis?
Yes, another cultural magical hypnosis. Yes.
Okay, what's after that? Oh, the sword.
Have we got the rod of equity and mercy on that list?
That's the scepters, isn't it? That come in a minute.
Yeah, because that's given when the crown's done as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's two of those, aren't there?
Here we go.
So,
The two sovereign scepters will be used at coronation. The sovereign scepter with cross represents the sovereign's temporal power and is associated with good governance. It's comprised of a gold rod surmounted in an enameled heart-shaped structure that holds the Culilian one, a diamond. It's a giant diamond. Okay. The scepter was created for King Charles II, and the Culilian was added in 1901. The sovereign scepters with the dove, traditionally known as the rod of equity and mercy, represents the sovereign's spiritual role, with the enameled dove and outspread wings representing the Holy Ghost. It was created by the crown jeweler Robert Venier in 1661. So it's representing the temporal powers of the king, and it's binding to the church itself.
as defender of the church, isn't it? Defender of the faith.
Well, more than defender, procreator with it. The church was not above the sovereign, which was new in history. The church was above the sovereigns in France, okay? Until such a time as they took along, they're like, hey, we need to be more than you. Okay? So the different scepters would be used during different state rituals or noble functions. Okay? The scepters could be used to grant powers of the church to a knight's group to go and do knightly duties in other lands. It could be granted to missionaries, okay? Giving them the divine power of the church and the king's authority to have the power of the church into different missionary groups. So it was a way to imbue faith through objects.
So one of those scepters, I don't know which one, is handed to a particular hand, which is it the right hand with the white glove? There's a white kid glove. So
yeah, there's
why
just one glove,
that?
isn't there?
Sorry,
There's just one glove, isn't there, Laura? I
one,
remember
just
them
only
saying
one
that, yeah.
glove, and I think it's the right hand, isn't it? And it's a kid glove. So what's the symbolism there? Well, what's behind the symbolism?
All right, so it's why it's being handed to him and who it's being handed to him, and then who is it being handed back to.
But
It's representing the right hand of the king to do things no matter if the king is available or not available. It's imbuing power to a secret authority within the king's structure, just like in what is it? The Dragon Show. I have a brain fart.
what, like mystery schools or?
No.
No.
In the Dragon
Game of
House
Thrones.
of Dragons.
Game of
House
Thrones,
of Dragons.
having the hand of the king. Same concept, but you imbue a religious role as well as a militaristic law or a business role. You can imbue the powers into the hand of the king, who can go out and be the hand of the king in any foreign environment.
Okay, so it's the right hand because also that's the hand that he would shake hands with and so on.
Correct.
Okay. What's that in the picture? Is that the...
So these are spurs. They were made in 1661 for King Charles II, but the use of the spurs at coronation dates back to King Richard I, the Lionheart, and his coronation in 1189. The gold, leather, and velvet spurs symbolise knighthood, and they were altered in 1820 for King George IV.
So spurs relate to horses, and horses and human beings are intimately intertwined in lifetimes. Oftentimes, entire lineages of horses, hundreds of them, would go through a blessing and a cursing process to be reborn to be unique knights cavalry. Or the knight would be born into a horse, and then the horse would be reborn into a knight. And these spurs bind the different horse lineages to the crown's jewels. So there was always a high level of available horses for cavalry whenever needed. Special horses, not shitty horses.
So the royal family have got loads of different special bloodlines, don't they? What not
Yes.
available anywhere yet.
Yeah.
Do they have any that go far back as 1189?
I think I don't. I think there's some from 1189. I don't know if there's any others, but if you look in the original thing, hold on. There is another website that goes back to the very first crown jewel, which is I think 1031. You'd have to look at the official royal jewelries, but these would not be state-run jewels. These would be other magically created jewels throughout the unique histories of the various kings in power. And every time one king would leave and a new lineage would take over, they would take all the crown jewels from somebody else.
So did they become state-run with like Henry VIII or James II? Because that's when there were quite big shifts, wasn't there, in
Right.
swings
That's
of
where
power?
the sovereign was giving up its ruling power and allowing the House of Commons and House of Lords to actually run the government. Even though the hands of the king and the feet of the king were integral parts of it, but they stopped doing day to day operations and electing day to day operators.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
So, what have we got?
The armils, the bracelets.
Yes, the two
Enamel.
armils are bracelets made from gold. Champleave and Bastal enamel, I probably mispronounced that, lined in velvet, and are thought to relate to ancient symbols of knighthood and military leadership. They've been referred to during previous coronations as the bracelets of serenity and wisdom. The armils date back to 1661 and have been used at every coronation from King Charles II until King George VI in 1937.
So these bracelets represent taming this power of spirit and bringing even more raw spirit into the hands of the king, and a way to bring even more spiritual power, not just through the symbolism, but the magic on the devices themselves. So it's magical steroids for the king by wearing these. So he's all juiced up on magic.
Okay, what we've got next?
It's the scepter. Okay, we've got these rings.
Oh, the orbs.
The orbs. Have we done that one already?
That's the they're the armils, they're the bracelets. If you go up, that's the orb with the cross on the top.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the next one? I know we've done the spurs, must be the other way.
Is it the sovereign rings?
Okay.
Yeah, the ring.
Which he
The
doesn't actually
sovereign's
wear,
ring.
does he? He just touches.
So it's composed of a sapphire with a ruby cross set in diamonds, a symbol of kingly dignity. The ring was made for a coronation of King William IV in 1831.
And they wear it on the fourth finger of the right hand, they did.
So real quick, how many diamonds do you think are in that thing? If I remember correctly, the big one on the left is about $12 million in diamonds, and the other one I think is $7 million. The center diamond, I believe, is like 400 carats. Yes, there's a lawnmower in my background. Sorry, everyone. Nothing I can do to stop it. And it's like
It's not your
500
dad
yards
again,
away.
is it?
No.
Thought it was black magic coming in then.
Neighbor 2 days, 2 houses away. Now, imagine having those diamonds on your ring finger. What's it doing to your meridians?
Yeah, light.
Wow. Yeah.
So
Amplifying
when
everything.
when you think from an energy, it also brings powerful heart healing energies, heart opening energies. It opens up and it prevents you from getting sick, and also stops the rapid aging process when you're wearing these types of jewelries for extended periods of time. That was the other main purpose of the everyday jewels.
So
was to slow the aging process down.
That's their
is this
secret.
what Queen
then.
Elizabeth wore then throughout her life? These rings.
Queen Mother, or you mean the
Queen
Queen
Yes,
Elizabeth
but
Elizabeth?
they were
II, yeah.
different. They were different proxy items. They weren't the state crown jewels used for state authority functions.
So Mary, hi Mary. Mary's asking, in what way does the sovereign use the magical powers? Are there any examples of how they're used?
Okay, so influencing the different people to join the military for wars that were going to come, influencing the nobles to invest into properties, etc., influencing other states, other sovereigns. They gave them a charismatic power that could travel with their ambassadors too. They could imbue energy into others. That's how they would use it.
Who was the last monarch? Hi Lily. Who was the last monarch who was aware of the multi-dimensional nature of the coronation?
Ooh. They all have an awareness of it, but it's what level do they really give a shit about it? Okay? That's been a long time. Probably Richard the Lionheart, right
Why is
about
that?
there.
Because they're just almost
No,
complacent to it because they grew up with it?
No, he was brought up in the secret societies that wanted to use them for a different purpose, where imperial expansion was vitally important to them, so that you can use this power to take over other lands and subjugate the people via power.
Oh, via the Crusades.
Correct.
So why did the Windsor Grey horses have blue manes? Thank you, Scott, for that.
That represents a specific type of horse that's had magical rituals done on its lineage over hundreds, if not, a century, 2, 3, 4, 5 centuries. That brings very unique horse-based souls into the lineage and under the king's ownership, which adds even more power to the house of the king.
So for a king or a queen, Andrew, when they pass on, you say there's ceremonies done. Do they come back into the lineage of the royal family then? It's like, as they die, eventually in the future they'll come back and join that lineage.
That's the
Do they have
main
that
point
technology?
when you make sovereign, is to become an immortal person, and that
Okay.
the upcoming generations have the magical knowledge to know you when you're going to be reborn, or have the ability to recognize you as you are born out of the womb. And it's not just the kings of England, it's all the kingships throughout Europe had this process, knowing that they were going to be reborn in the lineage.
Hi, Coco. Did Victoria practice magic?
The answer is yes, but she was not a good practitioner. She had others do it. And that's why I said, did they really give a shit? That's why you go back to Richard the Lionheart. The last one that would be a king with a high level of practicing magic himself. Since then, it's always been delegated to somebody else.
Is that because the crown wanted to wrangle some control from the actual king?
No, it was more the king couldn't do it all.
Okay.
And it was better for the king to be the figurehead of the people and allow his subjects with the imbued power to be the hand and feet and the arms and the legs and the penis of the king. And I said penis for a reason. Okay? Outbreeding another culture was called prima nocta. The king's power to outbreed a culture by meaning the sovereign of The noble of a land had the first right of any marriage. He could go and sleep with the woman before the man did. Okay, which was considered a power granted to them by God.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and yet it's very perverted energy. Okay, but
Mm.
it's how the king would imbue people with his power, and if you are going against the king, you're going against the king's power, and the king works off of glamour. Glamour also creates a fear, and it's the power of fear that generally the kings ruled through, and it's why so many souls rejected it. It's not God save the king, it's God kill the king. Blah da 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 da. Okay? People are naturally, what is the reptilian connection to the crown? Not as much as the conspiracy world wants you to think. Okay? The reptilian organizations were subjugated by the church, and the church regularly overtook the druids, the Celts, the thises and the thats. They brought an end to those magical cultures, but at the very end offered those magical cultures subjugation for life, meaning they did blood oaths to serve the king. Okay? And unfortunately, you've got, various groups out there that say the queen is a lizard. No, the queen's not a lizard. The queen's a contract holder for a magical society operating in the background that doesn't want you to know it's there. And the lizards are just one little tiny part of it.
So when was the kings have the divine right to rule brought in? Who brought that in and when?
Oh, that was right after Jesus. There's the
Oh,
Christian
okay.
orders were being formed, and you had Constantinople go from being a state-run organization with elected officials, and the next day being a religion, and half the royal families were killed the night before. If you didn't accept it, I mean, this classic, kill anybody off that doesn't want the new thing, because their religion is eternal and a state can die right away.
But it's still the underpinning of the whole ceremony now is their divine right to rule. And
Right, which comes from where?
Old Testament?
Correct.
Don't know. Okay,
Old Testament.
right.
Who was the first king and queen again? Like the first one?
Well, that's the
Recorded.
debate.
Yeah.
That's the debate.
From your perspective, Andrew, who was the first one?
None of them in existence now.
Okay.
They had even in
history's
Egypt they had an
been
expression of it, didn't they?
Yeah.
Egypt, you said, Egypt is where they first brought the icons into the homes, into the houses, where
Sure.
that
And the Egyptian pharaoh is just another way to say king. They was the king.
Yeah.
The Egyptian pharaoh was the sovereign. They just adopted that to their realities.
And we haven't even talked about other realms yet, like Hollow Earth.
Or if you're looking at the Chinese that have the ruler of heaven's mandate, king. Same concept, different culture.
Have you read Sean's note? So many are afraid of lizards. What if we visualise them as little newts?
Sure, it works great. Insulting them. Okay? They operate by fear. When you don't fear them, they shrink away.
I like it. You used to put them in the corner with a dunce's hat on, Andrew, didn't you?
Yep.
Sometimes.
and they resist like fuck.
Okay,
So
what's next?
Pollock was asking, are any of the objects made from non-Earth materials? Yes. Quite a few of them are made from meteorites and other worldly objects that have been melted down and forged into other objects. Yes.
And so Jason, hi
And
Jason.
many of the
Sorry.
crystals were not mined from here on Earth. They were brought from other places.
So these secret societies that are behind all of this, the real magicians, are they aware of the Galactic history as much as you've talked about the contracts, the way this works, the soul commerce, all of the other stuff? Do they have
The
a
answer is
knowingness?
yes. There's an entire society behind that is aware of it and supports the structure of domination and control, the harvesting of intentional prayer energy that goes through the the king and filtered through the three obelisks of power. So yes, it's all interconnected.
So Jason said, slightly tongue-in-cheek, he said, but where do they get these wonderful toys? Just handed down.
Most of it's handed down, or they were given orders to create them for specific purposes.
And if you had a, let's say you had an invasion, we're going back several hundred years, and we have these types of jewels, and there's an invasion, and somebody takes over the crown and all the jewels, and they put them on their head. What happens? Would these secret societies go with them?
Say that again.
Let's say you have an invading force. So one country takes over another, or one tribe takes over another, and these objects are there, and they take the objects by force. Did they take on the contract?
Many times. That's happened many times. And it's just these crown jewels have not been taken by force in a very long time.
Would it work negative for those type of people in those type of scenarios?
They would do rituals that would take their magic societies would take control of them. And if they were taken over by a non-magic society, like straight up theft, like about 8 years ago, there was a big string of crown jewels all over Europe being stolen.
Wow.
Okay? Yeah. And they were doing that for a reason. They needed to get all those crown jewels and do rituals and organize them in one place, but they didn't want anybody to know what was going on.
So also, I guess if you stole somebody else's magicked item, that magic is not going to work for you in the same way. It would have like a shut-off valve, wouldn't it?
Yep.
Because
exactly.
It's bound in contract to the original keeper, owner.
Exactly.
Oh, don't know this one. Who was the man in the dark cloak seen briefly in the hall behind the coronation?
One of those people that operates behind the scenes.
Yes, was he
was
part
only
of
ever
the...
seen during only ever seen during a coronation.
Didn't see him.
So Andrew, can we
religious spy?
Can we do a type of galactic reading on one of the stones?
Sure. Which one?
Okay, so if you go to the Imperial State Crown, it's right at the bottom of that website. There's the crown's got purple material, and there's a big red stone with another stone seated inside it.
Yeah,
so
that's
big
called
red
the
stone.
The Kulinar stone. Or I'm announcing it wrong. It comes from the Mughals, or essentially the leftover empires of Genghis Khan. That's where that diamond comes from.
Is that
That's
the
a red
same
diamond.
as the spinel?
Yes.
Yeah, so a red stone, isn't it? Spinel.
A red diamond.
The one above it those also come from the Mughals also. And those are from 17 or 1680, something to that effect. Now, those diamonds came from, let's just call it, magic diamond hunters. People trained, just like you have truffle pigs that can hunt truffles underground, you have special people who are trained at a young age to be diamond hunters, where they go through the different areas, because diamonds can exist on the surface. They're called kimberlite pipes, and they exist all over. Okay, and they were attracted to them in a form of psychic clairvoyance to find them. And all the different elder societies have a group of these people that are trained to do this stuff. Okay, and then they collect them and they trade them to other sovereigns. There's a trading organization behind the societies. We would call that the Tartarians. Okay, they were always the middleman to creation of super magic items. That's why so many of the Russian state jewels are as exquisite as the British jewels. So where did it come from? It came from Upper Afghanistan. What was its purpose being sold? Well, somebody needed something they had. which was lost Atlantean technology that was in the deep undergrounds in Ireland. And they traded the technology that they recovered from the mines in Ireland for those diamonds to make crowns.
Wow. And that's the clear one and the red one.
Yes, the clear one and the red one, yes.
And the red one is a red diamond, and the other one is a big diamond.
Yeah, even bigger.
Okay, that's huge.
It's 1,350 carats. Worth about $27 million.
Wow.
Yeah, it's from 1685, that one. It's
Yeah.
called the Black Princess Ruby, isn't it? Although it's not a ruby. They called it that. So Mary's asking, how powerful is the crown worn by Camilla? That was Queen Mary's crown, wasn't it, Andrew, I think?
So somebody is Andrew co-signing Tartarian research. So I'm putting my own perception on it because I have my own perception of the Tartarians, which is completely different than the existing crews of people out there with a perception of it. Which I've done in a handful of shows, and maybe I'll do a Tartarian show after some of this bullshit of the things of the way they think is all settled. Because always my information will be radically different than what's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And not all of it's bullshit out there. A lot of it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay? It's just missing significant pieces that explain why, when, where, how, and the different structures of society that existed. It's not one all homogenous explanation all throughout 1,000 years of their history. There's rapid changes within the Tartarian empires. Because the Tartarians were essentially the people that held the most breeding cows, which allowed the creation of lineages. And what is a breeding cow? A woman who's spiritually bound to give birth to powerful souls. Okay? They collected the princesses of the ancient areas, and they would have a special person who would have 40, 50, 60 wives, and the children then, and those offspring, and the females would then become breeding cows, which they trade all over the world.
Would that be like Kate?
Breeding cow trading organization.
Isn't Kate a breeder?
Yeah. Would that be like Kate?
Yes, Kate was a breeding cow. Yes, so was Diana too.
So Mary's asking, is Camilla a member of the royal lineage or just an observer? Does she have any special
she's a member.
powers?
She's a member.
Right. Does she have any special powers from wearing her crown?
Special, no. No. It's just the weight of spiritual contracts are going to weigh down on her. Obviously, she's going to have one fucked up dream world. I wouldn't want to sleep next to her.
So there's another thing here. The chrism oil with which the king and the queen consort will be anointed, which was consecrated in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem in March.
And so that's the oldest Christian church in existence. It's where Jesus did his work from, or was reborn in, whatever it was. Or something, I forgot what it was. That's all they represent. It's the oldest Christian church out there.
Why does the anointing have to be in secret? What is so different about that ritual?
If you saw if you saw everything, we wouldn't believe in the glamour. It has to have that glamour energy to it. And that's why it has the pomp and circumstance and $130 million, of a coronation. They're not going to do a $5 coronation and have fish and chips afterwards.
Maybe one
Would
day.
it really work?
Yeah. So the anointing spoon is one of the oldest objects there, I think, isn't it?
Yep. the tradition of the silver being born with the silver spoon. When you're born with the silver spoon, it's imbuing energies into your tongue at the earliest levels, which allows a higher form of spiritual influence when you're growing.
And also, because silver is such a healing metal too?
Yes. Yes.
So how different is the belief energy behind the royal family now compared to like 100 years ago? Because it feels like a lot of new children, new generations aren't really accepting it or believing it.
So if we go 100 years ago, how many people actually prayed and gave energy to the king? 1 out of every 100, maybe? Okay. And now is it maybe 1 out of every 1,000? But if you have 30 million people in your country, what is that? More than enough to keep it fueled. And then you have the people who do it because they don't want to be persecuted. That's good enough for the king. Okay, that means back in the 1800s, it was 100 out of every 1,000 were doing it, or 400 out of every 1,000. Okay, there are many that would just go through the process of what it because they didn't want to be excommunicated. The church had tremendous authority to ruin your life. Okay, you didn't go against it. It was a mafia on the local street.
What's the word they use against going against the king and queen? They used all the time. I forgot the word now. Shit, it's gone on my head.
What do you mean, like anarchy?
Not anarchy. There was a law, wasn't there, where if you do anything against the king and queen, it's classed as a name, and you'd get killed straight away. I've totally forgotten the name.
Yes, I know.
I
I
see
can't remember it either. Yeah.
I see a question in the chat. Can you speak to the spiritual powers behind the British royal program of colonization in Africa? I'm thinking about the African tour Queen Elizabeth took after her coronation. So that's very, very, very important. You must understand the Boer Wars of the 17 and 1800s that were going on. It was for the battles to get access to King Solomon's mines. King Solomon's mines generally exists in not Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Mozambique area, and wherever you see the great Zimbabwe city, it was a culture that existed between 900 BC and around 1500 AD, which had a variety of rises and falls. But that's where King Solomon's mines were, and that was her power to take over the power of the King Solomon's mines. That's why she did that, and you'll never hear that anywhere else.
Wow. Holy shit.
Because access to the Solomon's mines, it's more than just gold. We'll leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
It's more than just gold.
So was she involved in that then?
Ancient technology.
Right. Or does that then become...
They needed her DNA and the crown jewels to put the energies and the beings of that place under her sovereign power. That's why she took the trip there, and that's why the crown jewels came with her. So they could do a religious control over, because it's not one mine, it's hundreds and hundreds of intersecting mines, thousands of deep undermined tunnels, with an entire societies and cultures there, underground. So somebody wants to know about the stone situated on the throne. That's the Stone of Destiny.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot of speculation. Is it the actual Stone of Destiny? I don't believe it's the original Stone of Destiny, no. I believe it's an imitation. That the original Stone of Destiny would not allow the existing kings on that throne. Because there was the original power behind those that created the Stone of Destiny, which was the true order of kings for the true order of people, and not the corrupted process that it took over.
Do they know that? Do you think the Crown knows that?
So how did Cecil D. Rhodes fit into that? He was a popular explorer of the great Zimbabwe cities and a lot of the other things and research of that area. which then leads into the book of King Solomon's Mines, which was written by a guy who actually worked in mines in South Africa and
Oh,
picked up a lot of the tales and then wrote the actual story, King Solomon's Mines, which is just a novel.
is that Rider Haggard?
Yeah. So yes, the great King Solomon's Mines exists in Zimbabwe. Somebody wants to know about monatomic gold related to the crown jewels. That was an alchemical process that was done by the high alchemists of the different crown jewelers who could create monatomic gold, which was a life extending elixir given to the various sovereigns of the time. It could cure any sickness, any disease, and was rarely handed out. Not because it was difficult to make, because handing it out changed the future. And the jewels are what controlled the future. So very rarely was it used.
I mean, they had so much technology to give them long lives. I say had. Do they still have that amount of
Yes.
power in the
Yes.
technology for
The king
longevity?
and queen of today are not meant to be living extended lives. It is the high oligarchs that get the extended life. And they're the ones that exist behind the king and the queen. And they're the ones that say, you're going to be king and queen for the next century or two because I don't want to be the king. I need your ass to be the contract holder of all this negative shit we're going to do.
So you take the karma.
Yeah, you take the karma. That's the position of the king. That's why I say, have a little pity for the king and the queen.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Over all the karma of all the negative shit everyone's doing.
It's
Yeah.
not the best
Yeah.
job in the world.
Queen
Yeah,
was
and the
crowned when she
positive.
was a teenager, wasn't she? Just a young
Yeah.
adult. Do you imagine a life like that? No thanks.
Yeah.
So, can the sovereign or members of the religious order choose to avoid certain royal lineage or persons from regenerating in the royal line? The answer is yes. And you see this in the pharaonic lineages too. If your sovereign symbol was removed from the order of heraldry, you didn't get to be reborn. The heraldry orders were just as important, specialized books gilded in gold, so that a future practitioner can recognize this baby that's being born was from a king or queen from 100 years ago.
So what about the eagle amulet then, which is nearly as old as the spoon, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, but that goes back to the Holy Roman Empire, Charlemagne's
Okay.
Holy Roman Empire.
What's
They
the
had to take power from all the previous kings to say, I'm the king of the world, because every king is saying, I'm king of the world.
so that's the symbol of the eagle then, the
Yeah,
higher up. Okay. Is there any significance that the oil comes through his beak? It's just
no.
no. Okay.
What if it came out his butt?
Yeah. Be more fun.
I don't think the king wants to be anointed for the oil coming out of the eagle's butt, do you?
Well, maybe one day.
It's a joke everyone would be creating.
Okay, what's next on our visuals here?
I think that was the
Oh,
bottom of that
objects.
particular page.
So who's
Don't know
next
the
in
ones.
line? William's next in line, isn't he, for the crown after Charles?
I don't think either of them are going to take it.
Okay.
When either of
What do
them,
you
you
think?
mean
Have you
William
got
or
predictions,
George,
Andrew?
his son?
Going
Yes.
forward.
But it's a matter,
Okay.
are they going to let one of their children take it? If not, somebody else has got to be picked.
Do they really have any say?
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yes. Remember, the items choose you, and you have to choose the items. It's the way it works.
The
A bit
contract's
like the
already
Sorting
written.
Hat on Harry Potter.
Be good to talk about Harry for a moment. That's
And
an
if you notice,
interesting
Harry was sat with
conversation.
Prince Andrew as well, and all the like outside people who've been pushed away a little bit.
Okay, so we got a question here. Are those who watched Charles' coronation in any way spiritually affected? Yes, by the glamour and glitz. Was something like energy taken from them, or or contracts? It wasn't energy taken. Energy was given to them through the coronation, which then would activate spiritual contracts such as loyalty, faith, love, a extension because they were a noble in previous lifetimes. So yes, energy is being given during the coronation. It's that glamour energy that brings you under the authority of the charisma of the king and the many hands of the king. That's why many people couldn't watch or were totally offended by it.
I just felt odd afterwards. I felt slightly nauseous, and I tried to watch it in quite, in neutrality.
Sure, there are many other people that absolutely loved it. Okay?
Yeah, including my family.
Because it was energy that appeased their spiritual purpose, their spiritual contracts. Not everyone has the same, like the spiritual. Like if you were a Japanese person who didn't know anything about the king and the queen, and all of a sudden you turn it on, you'd probably be glitzed out by the glamour of it. But that's what they want.
Yeah, because it's very fairy tale looking, isn't it, with the golden
Yeah.
coach?
Yeah, and at some point, you were a British person, that whoever that current Japanese, you've been just about everywhere in the world in different incarnations.
Well, I think if it wasn't William for king, then it actually goes to George, not the brothers.
Because Harry
doesn't
won't be able to
Yeah.
get it, will he? Because he's resigned from duties.
I don't know.
Yeah,
That's not the succession, though.
they could reassign him though. Well, let's just hope Charles doesn't have a car accident anytime soon.
Who was it who said he's been ill? Someone said he had cancer.
He's been ill for a long. He's been ill for a long
Yeah.
time. I think he was battling prostate cancer,
Okay.
but that was some years ago.
His hands sort of look quite blue and swollen, but that could have just been the telly.
Yeah.
But-
There's many memes of that.
oh, really? Is there?
Yeah, like all his hands. There's hundreds of them out there taking the piss out of his hands. How big they are. They're like sausages. There's one of a sandwich of his
Oh.
face, and you're like a sausage sandwich with the hands in.
So I've actually taken part in a ritual in Buckingham Palace.
Go on,
was
Maty.
it was nothing big, but when I was a teenager, I went into the military, and we was the youngest you could be in the military at that time, and they took us all on a bus down to London, and we actually went in the gates, and we stood there, and we was a part of the changing of the guard. Actually, within the grounds of the palace itself, we had to do all the standing to attention, and there was a guy, the officer took off his hat when we had to go to attention. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Hope you didn't see Prince Andrew there.
No, I didn't.
So are the rules affected by the glamour they portray? Like the narcissist who loves his image in the wall? Does this restrict
Absolutely,
them from
yes.
appreciating?
Absolutely, yes. And that's the point of the crown jewels, is to empower the narcissist leader to be the narcissist leader through glamour, which then amplifies the power of the past holders to influence the present holders. So, yes.
So it's reciprocal with their ancestors, the ancestral holding energy.
Yes.
Because these people, like that are in the royal families and their circles, they still do lots of drugs and crazy things, and live hedonistic lives, a lot of them, don't you?
Not as much anymore.
No.
Those debaucherous rituals really ended in the mid 1840s and 50s.
Right.
They pretty much ended.
Do you reckon they gave Charles anything for the day? Because you'd have to have a bit of extra something, wouldn't you, to deal with that when you're that old?
But imagine all that jewellery on you, Dale. He's got all of that. He must be buzzing his nut off the whole sitting there like
that. Exactly. I don't know if I could handle all that shit. Okay.
I'd be up all night with Camilla.
Exactly. Be buzzing.
We're talking in bed at each other like, "Ooh, great day."
So have we missed any objects out? There's no more on that page then, Maty?
No, that was all for the coronation, other than the two swords.
Okay.
Those are about rulership of the military, and then rulership of the courts, who determine equity. The king is in power of the courts, and the king is empowered of the military itself. The king is always the head of the military, the king is the head of all the courts. The king can announce people who become court members and who become generals, admirals, etc., because they are imbued with the power of the king to do that.
Okay, and what? There's a stole, and there's a robe as well.
So that's church garb.
Yeah. Okay.
That's putting him over the power of the Pope.
Okay, as sovereign head of the church.
Correct.
Okay.
Higher than the actual Pope. Correct. Right. Well, he's the Pope technically, and then the king.
Yes. If you read up online, it says it's to hide the man and present him as a king rather than the man. And to show his transformation, that he's been dressed and presented.
So the royal family are quite low on like the hierarchy, aren't they? You'd think they'd be right at the top. But
the hierarchy of oligarchs, they're mid-level. Yeah, they're mid-level. They're working grunts for the oligarchs.
Is their financial status associated with that as well?
Well, their financial status is for being working grunts for the oligarchs.
Yes.
Puppets.
They're well taken care of by the oligarchs for holding them spiritual contracts.
There's a question here. It says, what type of influence do they have in the dream time, if any? Now, I know that a lot of people have dreams about the royals. I know maybe even Laura's had a couple as well.
The answer
Loads
is
about the Queen. Yeah.
They have a tremendous influence in the dream time because they have the powers of the church. Now, even if you're not a practitioner of the church in any way, shape, or form, you still have had previous lifetimes where you interacted with the royalty in different ways, shapes, and forms, which then connects you to what? And then, like, what does your £1 bill have? Who's on that? Who's on your £5 bill? Who's on your different kings and queens? Why? So your ass is connected to them.
You see the residual image every time you're feeling certain emotion. Yeah.
Yep.
It's interesting because in all my dreams she was cardboard. Like a cutout.
She was hobbled. Yeah, because she always was hobbled. She never was able to truly be herself. She was forced and molded into something she never wanted to be.
Yeah.
Did the Queen ever do shapeshifting?
No. But
that's
when you wear the crown jewels, you will see shit around that person, which could look like shape-shifting.
Okay.
Again, when you have 9,000 carats of diamonds, 11 pounds of gold, and 4 pounds of platinum on your body, what do you think it's going to do to your frequency?
Split this into 20 pieces.
9 pounds of gold, 4 pounds of platinum, 9,000 carats in diamonds. It's gonna fuck shit up.
I just want to have a go.
I just want to have a go.
I just want to have a go. I was looking at those jewels. I was thinking, oh my gosh, incredible. I want to make one.
What's the spiritual contract of the ravens around the Tower of London? I.e. the crown jewels.
Taking care of the dead.
The ghosts
So,
within the building.
In what way?
Well, sometimes you need ghosts in the building. Okay? It's tending to the dead, and the dead you want to stick around will stick around.
And how's that related to the crown jewels? Is that on some etheric
The
protection
jewels
team?
need other realmly protectors too, yes. There's a whole other realm behind the jewels. Okay? That's just the reality of it. I couldn't even begin to describe to you what the realm is like. How many people are in the British Commonwealth now? 30 million?
Okay,
No idea.
Yeah.
30 million. At one point, it was close to 100 million. If you counted all the colonies and everything before the Great Wars. Okay? That's a lot of people to influence with your kingly powers, isn't it? Those were those tools, those jewels were operating in many dream worlds around the world. Wherever the king's sovereign stamp of power was in a building.
And so they have to travel to these countries regularly and perform these rituals and ceremonies with these jewels.
No,
To
they
keep
would
that
have
power.
a priest class that would do it.
And they'd all have their own special jewels that are just as magnificent as some of these ones.
Not as magnificent. Governor's jewels are a specialty. Ambassador's jewels. There were special jewels that would travel with the different groups of people.
Very cool.
Is there anything significant about the oak coronation chair that goes back to 1306 other than the magic
Yes,
obviously
it was
imbued in it?
It was created by the last of the druids to create the sovereign power for the Stone of Destiny to be
Wow,
under.
yes. By the last
Wow.
of the druids, wow.
Cool.
It's held together well, hasn't it?
Yep.
A wooden chair. Woodworm have no contracts with the the oak then. It's still standing.
Yeah, you'd treat that very carefully, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you don't want to dick that thing.
Treasure.
So is the future of the monarchy worldwide? It's a shrinking power.
The answer
Or the
is
crown.
yes. So if you look at this, there's no Swiss monarchs or Austrian monarchs anymore. The Norwegian monarchs are virtually nothing. The majority of the monarchs have receded into being common citizens with wealth, with great wealth, which means the oligarchs are not really behind them anymore. But the oligarchs are granting them power to influencing their people because the oligarchs are investing in the next level, which are mega corporations. Those are the new monarchies. Facebook, YouTube,
Yes.
Twitch, Twitter.
Yeah.
Okay? The online world is the new monarchy.
Yeah, because
And that's
that's where the young
Digital black magic.
Right. That's the digital world taking over the magical world.
and that's where the young people are turning.
So is King Charles secretly a Sufi? No. Is the Vatican involved in this coronation somehow? Technically, yes. But in reality, no. Because the king is higher than the Pope in the Catholic Church, done through the King James Bible, etc. They have their own church with the kingly authority. So technically, they're involved in it, but they're not direct from the Vatican. Even though you have a lot of Vatican priests that end up in the religious orders of the monarchs, because that's where the main religious trainings come from.
So if you see at one of these big events, such as coronation, when you see other monarchs there, would that represent the hidden hands of these different organisations will have their representatives wherever they go. So when you see these so they would obviously be having their own secret meetings.
Yep.
All around that event.
Well, before the event. And after the event. Again, they don't just go and have fish and chips afterwards.
No.
Okay?
I'd love to hear a conversation that's going on in one of those rooms, honestly.
Yeah. That's a good one. So how can we apply these symbols and tools to help alleviate us, the common people?
Not use them.
Yes, because they're
sovereign.
under contract to someone else.
Exactly.
Yes.
Contract revocations.
Would work against you. Yeah.
Make them irrelevant.
Yes.
Exactly, make them irrelevant.
Yeah. Outcreate. So why do the
Don't
dual
let them trigger you as
communities
well.
why do the dual communities tolerate what is obviously a corruptive frequency?
That's a human perception, isn't it? You're not
Yes.
a jewel or a jewel community, and those jewels are being put to a unique spiritual purpose in the great resolution of karma. So to them, it's a perfect job for them to be doing.
It's their contract.
Yeah, it's their contract. Look at all the other jewels that are not in supporting of it. Okay? Again, you're not a jewel, you're a human. And until you live the life to the jewel life, you won't know what it's like.
Can't read that one.
Well, guys, I think we've exhausted the coronation for now. Let's call it an end to the show. We can always retouch this. What I'd like people to do is to go into the comment section after the show and write down or type in some of the other crown jewels from around all of Europe you'd like us to talk about. Okay? I've done a couple of these before where I've talked about the crown jewels, the many crown jewels that got stolen in the mid 2016, 17, 18, and 2019. You had a theft of a huge amount of crown jewels from many different cultures. We could bring stuff up like that, but bring in a specific jewel, and we'll cultivate another show based off of what we get from the comment section.
Yeah.
Okay, Dale, giveaway for people to get a hold of you.
So if anybody would like soul surgery, go on to daletobin.com, and I'm also running past life regression training, which includes free sessions during the training as well. So if you suffer from any traumas or anything in this lifetime, I can connect them back to the past lives as well. So it's very deep healing. So if you go on to daletobin.com to book, if you want to have a session or do training with me, thank you again, and I put my crown off to you all.
Maty, giveaway for people to get a hold of you.
Guys, so I'm a psychic surgeon, a healer, and a light language specialist. So you can find me at twofeathersmedicine.com, where you can book private sessions with me. And there are some light language products and a basic light language course for anybody who's interested in beginning to speak light language if you don't already do so. So twofeathersmedicine.com and click on my name.
Okay, Laura, giveaway for people to get a hold of you.
Yes, if you'd like one-to-one shamanic self-mastery training, so you can try and outcreate some of the crap that's out there. Contact me, Two Feathers Medicine, and also if you'd like some ancestral connection, I can do that for you. I'm an ancestral medium, and if you would like to know more about how you can get into prayer, other than the Sunday prayer service, which Maty is actually going to do this week, I've got a short prayer course coming out. So if you're stuck on getting into prayer and what you do on your daily practice, then I will be putting up a link soon so you can sign on to that, and we'll have I think 2 lots of 2 hours training and lots of prayer giveaways for you then as well. So look out for that.
All right, you can go to my website, andrewbartzis.com, and look for sessions, any of the great products that we have. And we will be back tomorrow for our comedy show at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. All right, Joel, take us away.
Please
Thanks,
like, subscribe, and share, guys.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Good night.
Healing comes in many forms, all the colors aligned. You are free as a dove when you choose, a sovereign state of being.
And allow this product to work with the 7 color chakras in our own energy system.
Meditations can trigger DNA wisdom and memories in light, out-creating our limited chemical memories. So sit back, relax, as we take you on a journey of light and colour.